Hey guys! Like I promised in the update, here's my accepted Sheridan animation portfolio. A little disclaimer before I start, this portfolio was accepted in 2016, so the requirements won't be the same for you, like if ever you do decide to apply. There are changes I'm aware of, thanks to all the gossip floating around the school, and I'll likely say what those changes are as I flip through the portfolio, but for now I say, let's start. First is life drawing, and I've got to say right off the bat, don't do what I did here, or rather, try to avoid it if you can. Basically, I drew directly on some printer paper with a regular pencil, so I wouldn't have to resize it later, but having taken the course now, I realize that it's not exactly the best way to go about it. What I would recommend is to use large, preferably smooth newsprint, so that you have enough space to fit the entire figure into it. Though I know the paper can be a bit of a hassle to handle when you don't have the right table, so it's not that big of a deal. As for material, I'd highly suggest using a 2B Conte. It has a lot of uses, but I'm recommending it here mostly because it's what we use in class, and it would basically give you a head start in familiarizing yourself with it. A little tip at getting better quicker would be to start drawing what my teacher called the bean, which is pretty much just bean. It represents a torso. When you've got that mapped out, it's super easy to just place the limbs at that point. I found that it really helped me make my figure drawings a lot more fluid and cut down on time so I could get more details in faster. Another tip would be to avoid drawing the face, toes, or fingers unless you're 100% sure you'll be able to pull it off. Like at least during like the 30-second, 1 minute, or 3-minute sessions. Rather, what my teacher taught me is to use the power of suggestion, where you draw a single line indicating where the first toe or finger is, or where the eyebrows and nose are. That way people can see where everything is while filling in the details themselves. Besides all that, there isn't much else I could say without going on forever except to practice, practice, practice. I've had it told to me before, and I'll tell all of you this too, figure drawing is arguably the most important portfolio piece because it takes so much time to grow comfortable with. So much so that you'll likely have to start practicing months before you make your final portfolio pieces. I personally only had a month to do my entire portfolio for reasons, so I didn't have that luxury, but if you're thinking about applying next year, you better take advantage and start now. I know a lot of people don't have any places near them that offer figure drawing sessions, myself included, so if that's the case for you, I'd recommend a channel here on YouTube called Cookie Cafe that offers them for free. They're exactly like regular sessions, just, you know, in video form. But anyway, I talked about this for way too long, so let's move on. Next we have the hands, where we had to draw one about to do an action and another hand doing the action, which I ended up choosing squeezing a stress ball. Maybe a little self-reflective of my state back then. It's pretty self-explanatory here, so we'll flip to the next category, which were animal drawings. From what I know, Sheridan portfolios don't require animal drawings anymore, so don't take my word for it. Still, always check your requirements just to be sure. But yeah, although I don't personally agree with them taking them out, I can definitely see why they did. It was such a pain finding an animal that wouldn't move every 5 seconds. I was only able to get these drawings because 1, it was the only animal in the store that kept still, and 2, I had my friend hold her. She was already a chill cat, but even she got pretty fidgety after a while. So get yourselves lucky you won't have to deal with that now. Next thing we had to do was character design, which is by far my absolute favorite subject. It's pretty easy to see that in my drawings because I feel like these next few are definitely the best thing about my portfolio. Here you can see I used one of my original characters, and honestly, this is a good chance to do so. But there are a couple of things that you should still keep in mind when choosing a character to use, which are silhouette and simplicity. Silhouette because you want your characters to be as recognizable as possible, even when you blur out the details, so case in point, my character's hat and the curved shapes of her sleeves and pants, but especially the hat. And simplicity because you have to think that when animating this character, you'll have to draw them a few thousand times. And the amount of details you put on a character can really make a difference on how long the process will take. But anyway, moving on from that, first thing we had to do was the character rotation. I had a mini light table when I was drawing her, which was a godsend, but if you don't have one, it's really no big deal. You could do just like I did here and use horizontal lines to help guide you on where everything should go. The requirements here for the poses have definitely changed, but for our year we had to have our character do 2 action poses. Not like kicking and punching or anything, though you could have probably done that too, but rather just doing something. In my case, I was super uninspired because I learned that actions didn't mean kicking and punching, so I went with basic activities like drinking and climbing, which totally don't make any sense in her universe, but we'll ignore that. All things considered, I think I did a great job with the poses anyway. Some of you may have noticed, but I left some lines here going through the character, which was completely intentional in order to show what's called the line of action. It's basically the line that guides the character's pose to help make it look more dynamic. I definitely suggest looking more into that if character design is something you're interested in. Then we have the facial expressions, which were some of the most fun I had with the portfolio just because I already drew them so often. For context, the expressions we had to draw were neutral, happy, surprised, angry, and sad. I was super happy with how these all turned out, and I still am, really. Like, I was actually in a rut when it came to her design, so using her in my portfolio really pushed me to sit down and work on developing it. Moving on, we have storyboards. Something I find cool that they do at Sheridan is that the characters they have you use for these storyboards are different each year, and I'm really happy I got to use this character here because she's just so fun to draw. In that year's portfolio, we had to have the character find an object, interact with it, and show the result in the last panel. Here you can see she has a ton of homework to do, which I honestly didn't realize this before, but it's pretty damn accurate of the amount of homework we ended up having to do. But yeah, so here she gets distracted, sees the magic 8-ball, and asks it if she'll ever finish her homework, to which it tells her to stop dawdling. I wanted it to say stop procrastinating, but the word procrastinating was way too long to fit into that little triangle. Still, I think I got the message across. Storyboarding for a lot of people, I think, is one of the most disappointing subjects because they think it's like comics, but then learn about the different rules, like the 180 line, the different types of shots, and things like that, and then they realize that, yeah, storyboards aren't comics. But I honestly really like it. I studied up on it a little before coming to Sheridan, so I guess it gave me a bit of a heads up on what to expect. It's definitely up there with character design and subjects I'm interested in pursuing anyway. Speaking of favorite subjects, here we have probably my weakest subject, layout. By weakest I mean both in terms of my personal opinion and by my score sheets, so I suggest not taking any advice from me when it comes to layout. Like, if anything, look at these drawings as examples of what not to do, or to try and do better. I know that sounds like I'm harshing on myself a lot, which, you know, I guess I am, but I've gotten so much better this past year that I don't even feel bad saying all that, really, so judge away, please. Here we had to take objects that were shaped like a cone, a sphere, a cylinder, and a cube, and have them changed in some way by an external force, which I ended up having to be a flea market. It didn't turn out so great because, one, it doesn't look like a flea market at all, but mostly because there weren't any drastic changes besides the beach ball. Still though, I'm pretty happy that I tried to push myself to do something a little more creative. And then we have the room drawings. I was so proud with how straight I was able to make my lines with a ruler, and I still am, honestly. I think the thing that really hurt my score here were the details and the proportions of the characters within the space. The edgy killer guy here especially, because if you remove the table, it would be so obvious that either his feet go through the floor or his legs are a lot shorter than normal. But we're done with this for now, so I'm tired of looking at it, so let's move on to the final subject with our personal art. For the portfolio, we couldn't use any fan art, and I remember thinking, no sweat, and checking my DeviantArt only to realize that all I ever did was fan art. No one has to know about that. Thank God people actually commissioned me to do art, because I would have never had enough drawings to hand in otherwise. Besides that, though, I could comment on all of these for hours, but I know this video is already running pretty long, so I'll just end the tour here. And so, there you have it, I guess. My Sheridan animation portfolio of 2016. I hope this helped a bit to inspire you all and to show you a bit of what the school is looking for. And if ever you see this video and end up applying down the road, please, by all means, show me your portfolios. I always love discovering new artists, and who knows, maybe we'll even see each other in the halls one day. But with all that said, I'll stop here for now, and I guess I'll see you all in the next video.